There are places that live in your memory, not as brick and mortar, but as feelings, as echoes of laughter, as the ghost of a hand on a banister. For me, that place was Thornfield Estate. And then it was gone. My parents had sold it 15 years ago during a period of financial hardship. It had been a devastating blow, a severing of our roots, a loss that we had all felt deeply. But no one had felt it more than me. I was an architect, a woman who built houses for a living, and the loss of my own home, the one that had shaped me, had left a hole in my heart that I had never been able to fill. My name is Bethany Wallace, and at 38, I was a woman who had learned to live with a certain level of emotional distance from my family. It hadn't always been that way. There was a time when we were close, a time when the echoes of laughter in the halls of Thornfield were real, not just a memory. She'd schedule family events on days she knew I had a major work deadline. She'd tell extended family members that I thought I was too good for them now, that my career as an architect had made me arrogant and distant. My parents, passive and conflict avoidant, had let her do it. "You know, Harper," my mother would say with a sigh when I would call, hurt and confused, after being excluded from yet another family gathering. "She just wants everything to be perfect. Don't make waves, Bethany. It's easier this way." It was easier for them, but it was slowly, painfully killing me. I was being erased from my own family, one forgotten invitation, one passive-aggressive comment, one rewritten memory at a time. I was becoming a ghost in the house of my own family, a faint, shimmering presence that no one seemed to see or hear or remember. The final brutal act of my erasure came in the form of an invitation. A thick, cream-colored envelope that had arrived in the mail, announcing a grand family reunion, a celebration of my parents' 40th wedding anniversary. It was to be held at a special venue, a place that was being kept a secret, a surprise for my parents. I had been included. For a moment, a flicker of hope had ignited in my chest. Maybe this was it. Maybe this was the olive branch I had been waiting for. Maybe this was the chance to reconnect, to rebuild, to find my way back to the family I had lost. And then a week later, the other shoe had dropped. A curt, dismissive text from Harper. "So sorry, Bethany, we had to cut the guest list, limited space at the venue. You understand." I'd stared at the text, my heart a cold, hard knot in my chest. I didn't understand. I didn't understand how I could be excluded from my own parents' anniversary party. I didn't understand how I could be deemed limited space in my own family. I had been uninvited, erased, and in that moment, the flicker of hope had died, replaced by a cold, hard resolve. I had done some digging. I had called my cousin, a woman who was still on speaking terms with me, and I had asked her about the special venue. And when she told me the name, a wave of shock so profound it had almost knocked me off my feet had washed over me. The venue was Thornfield Estate, my Thornfield, the house of my childhood, the heart of my family. The place that Harper was now using as a weapon to exclude me, to erase me, to finally, definitively cut me out of the family for good. But Harper had made a fatal mistake, a miscalculation of epic proportions. She had assumed that Thornfield was just a venue, a rental, a place that she could book with a credit card and a phone call. She had no idea of the truth that I had been keeping secret for 3 years, the truth that was about to turn her perfectly planned party into a spectacular public implosion. Because 3 years ago, I had bought Thornfield Estate. I had found it listed on a real estate website, a forgotten relic of a bygone era, a place that was in desperate need of love and care and a vision. I had bought it for $890,000, a sum that had taken every penny of my savings and a significant loan from the bank. I had spent the next 3 years and another $400,000 restoring it to its former glory. It was a passion project, a labor of love, a secret that I had kept from everyone, even my closest friends. It was my gift to myself, my way of reclaiming a piece of my past, of filling the hole in my heart that had been there for 15 years. It was my house, my home, my secret weapon. And Harper, in her arrogance, in her cruelty, in her relentless campaign to erase me, had just handed me the key to my revenge. A revenge that would be as sweet and as satisfying and as beautifully constructed as the house I now owned. The day of the reunion was a perfect summer afternoon. The sun was shining, the roses were in bloom, and Thornfield Estate looked like something out of a fairy tale. I had arrived early, before any of the guests, and I had walked through the rooms of my childhood, my heart a mixture of nostalgia and sadness and a fierce, protective love. This was my house, and no one was going to take it away from me again. I had instructed the catering staff, the valet parkers, the string quartet, to proceed as planned. I had told them that there might be a slight change in management during the course of the evening, but that they were to continue their work, and that I would be responsible for their payment. They had looked at me, a little confused, but had agreed. Money, after all, talks. And then the guests had started to arrive. My aunts, my uncles, my cousins, my parents, and finally Harper. She had arrived in a cloud of self-importance, a queen in her own self-made kingdom. She had greeted the guests, her voice a little too loud, her smile a little too bright. She had taken credit for everything: the beautiful house, the perfect weather, the string quartet playing Vivaldi on the lawn. She was the hero of the hour, the one who had made all of this possible. I had watched from an upstairs window, a silent, unseen observer. I had let them settle in. I had let them get a drink, a canapé, a taste of the life they thought they were entitled to. And then, when the moment was right, when Harper was in the middle of a grand, sweeping speech about the importance of family and tradition and coming home, I had made my entrance. I had walked down the grand staircase, my hand on the polished oak banister, my steps slow and deliberate. A hush had fallen over the room. All eyes were on me. Harper had stopped mid-sentence, her mouth hanging open, her face a mask of shock and disbelief. "Bethany," she'd stammered, her voice a hoarse whisper. "What are you doing here? You weren't invited." "I know," I'd said, my voice calm and clear, echoing in the sudden, deafening silence. "But I own the place, so I thought I'd stop by." A collective gasp had rippled through the room. My parents were staring at me, their faces a mixture of confusion and dawning comprehension. Harper's face had gone from white to a sickly shade of green. You what?" she'd sputtered, her voice trembling. "I own Thornfield Estate," I'd repeated, my voice gaining strength, my resolve hardening into a diamond-sharp point. "I bought it 3 years ago. I restored it. Every brick, every beam, every pane of glass. It's mine." I'd pulled out a folder from my bag, and I'd laid it on the grand piano in the center of the room. The deed, the renovation contracts, the proof of my ownership, the evidence of my secret, my power, my truth. "You rented my house for a party you specifically uninvited me from," I'd said, my voice low and steady. "You used my home as a weapon to exclude me from my own family. You stood here in my house and you talked about the importance of family while you were actively trying to destroy it." I'd looked at Harper, at her crumbling facade, at the fear and the shame and the rage in her eyes. And I'd felt a flicker of something that might have been pity, but it was quickly extinguished by the cold, hard flame of my resolve. "So here's what's going to happen," I'd said, my voice ringing with a newfound authority. "Your rental contract is void. You misrepresented your connection to the property. You have no legal right to be here. None of you do." I'd paused, letting my words sink in. I'd looked at the faces of my family, at their shock, their confusion, their dawning horror. And then I delivered the final crushing blow. "But I'm a reasonable person. I'm willing to let the party continue, on one condition." All eyes were on me. The silence was so thick you could cut it with a knife. "Harper," I'd said, my voice soft but firm, You will apologize. You will apologize to me in front of this entire family for 10 years of exclusion, of manipulation, of cruelty. You will tell them the truth. You will tell them that you have systematically, deliberately, and maliciously tried to push me out of this family, and you will do it now. Silence. Harper was staring at me, her face a mask of fury. Her pride, her arrogance, her sense of entitlement, all warring with the cold, hard reality of her situation. She was trapped, and she knew it. I will not, she'd finally hissed, her voice dripping with venom. Then the party is over, I'd said, my voice final. I'd turned to the catering staff, to the musicians, to the valet parkers. Everyone, you can pack up. The event is canceled. I will, of course, pay you for your time. And then I'd turned back to my family. And as for the rest of you, I'd said, my voice as cold as ice, you have 5 minutes to vacate my property. After that, I will be calling the police. And then I'd walked away. I'd walked out onto the porch, the wraparound porch of my childhood, and I'd breathed in the sweet, fragrant air of my garden. I'd listened to the sounds of my family, the shouting, the crying, the chaos, and I'd felt nothing, no anger, no sadness, just a quiet, profound sense of peace. I had reclaimed my home. I had reclaimed my life, and I had done it on my own terms. The aftermath was transformative. The story of what had happened at Thornfield had spread through my family like wildfire. Harper's reputation was in tatters. She had been exposed, her cruelty and her manipulation laid bare for all to see. My parents, shamed and humiliated, had tried to apologize. They'd called, they'd texted, they'd sent long, rambling emails filled with excuses and justifications. I hadn't responded. Their apologies were too little, too late. The damage was done, the trust was broken, and I was no longer willing to be the bigger person, the one who always forgave, the one who always smoothed things over. I had turned Thornfield into a boutique architectural retreat center, a place where architects and designers and artists could come to work, to create, to be inspired. It was a success, a huge success. It was profitable and fulfilling, and it had brought me a sense of purpose and joy that I had never known. I had a new family now, a chosen family, a family of friends and colleagues and fellow artists, a family that loved me for who I was, not for what I could do for them. A family that celebrated my successes and supported me in my failures. A family that would never, ever uninvite me from the party. My name is Bethany Wallace, and this is my story. A story of a house and a family and a woman who learned to build her own damn home on her own damn terms. It is a story that I hope will inspire anyone out there who has ever felt like an outsider in their own family, a ghost in their own life. You are not a ghost. You are a force. You are a power. You are the architect of your own destiny. So pick up your tools and start building. And don't you ever let anyone tear you down.